Hey, everybody, welcome back into another edition of Bold Predictions at Inside Nebraska. He's Steve Marek, he's Greg Smith, and he is Jeff Ekstrom. I'm Zach Carpenter, and today we're analyzing Nebraska's 11 a.m. game against Wisconsin on Saturday. Nebraska coming in off a four-game losing streak. They're 3-7 overall, 2-5 in the Big Ten. Wisconsin is 5-5 overall and 3-4 in the Big Ten. It's the interim coach bowl, right, fellas? We got Jim Leonard on Wisconsin's side and Mickey Joseph on Nebraska's side, of course. Nebraska is 2-5 with Mickey Joseph guiding it, and Wisconsin is 3-2 under Jim Leonard since he took over in the first week of October after Wisconsin lost to Illinois. Only losses are to Michigan State by 6 in double overtime and to Iowa last week by 24-10. And meanwhile, Nebraska has been struggling the last few weeks without Casey Thompson over the last 2.5 games, but not to bury the lead. The news is official as of Thursday afternoon. Mickey Joseph confirmed that Casey Thompson is going to play. Didn't officially say he would start, but I mean, he's going to start. Casey Thompson is back, and a spread that was 13 points when it opened, and 12.5 as of Wednesday afternoon is now down to 10.5 points in favor of Wisconsin with an over under a 39.5 still. So interesting that the line moved by 2 full points, but the over under total didn't move at all. But anyway, just to get you guys' quick thoughts on the game, Steve, what do we think about this? Like I said, the interim head coach bowl.
Yeah, I wrote earlier in the week on Inside Nebraska that I would love to just be out on midfield when Jim Leonard and Mickey Joseph go and handshake and do the old handshake. It might even be like a hug, like a bro hug. Be like, hey, brother, how's it going? I bet they're going to share some really interesting stories to interim head coaches. But yeah, I mean, I'm really interested in this game. I know a lot of people are looking at Nebraska and they're not seeing a bowl trip again, which is fine. But to me, this is a really good opportunity for Nebraska to spoil everything that Wisconsin has worked for, getting back after the Paul Chryst firing, and they need this win. They'll get 6 wins if they get out of Lincoln with a victory, and then they're going bowling for a 21st consecutive season. That's really, really good. If Nebraska can find a way to upset Wisconsin on Saturday, Wisconsin will need to beat Minnesota in their season finale to go bowling. That's no easy task. So they're definitely going to want to come to Lincoln and leave with a win. So that's at least where I'm at with this game. I'm really interested, obviously, in seeing Braylon Allen up close and all that fun stuff. So yeah, there's plenty to play for in my mind with Nebraska, with pride and just beating Wisconsin for the first time since 2012.
Yeah, the real, to me, one of the interesting things too is that this is, to me, and I feel like I'm always saying this every year and I'm always getting snake bitten by it, but this is not your typical Wisconsin overall outfit, right? As we've seen by them having to fire Paul Chryst, and some of the stumbles that they've had under Jim Leonard even. And so if Nebraska was going to get Wisconsin and going to upset them, this would be maybe the best opportunity that they've had in recent years. And it feels like, at least under Scott Frost, Nebraska did play Wisconsin close or tough early in games and then kind of wilted down the stretch under, kind of that run game that just kind of keeps coming at you. And then Nebraska eventually making a mistake. So I'm curious to see if Nebraska can avoid that and if they can hang in here on senior day, which feels like it was talked about a little bit at the beginning of the week that it's senior day, but because of the weirdness with eligibility after the COVID year and Nebraska not having a lot of impact seniors, like it's a weird mix of stuff with that. But that always brings up some emotions too, and the kids should be fired up to play for that too. And Mickey Joseph said again today in his press conference that 2012. He's reminded them every day that it's been since 2012 since they've beaten Wisconsin. So I'm curious to see how that kind of manifests itself on Saturday as well.
Yeah, Greg, I'm glad you brought up the point about senior day because it just feels weird. It's not a very big senior class. Obviously, a lot of juniors are up to graduate, but it's not a very big senior class. So, yeah, it's a weird vibe around that. But, yeah, like everyone's mentioned so far, a lot of pride to play for. Wisconsin 9-0 against Huskers. Like everyone mentioned, hasn't won since 2012. So I'm going to be interested to see what kind of response this Nebraska team has. No bowl game, no nothing. So we'll kind of see what the attitude of this team is, because, I mean, there should still be plenty of motivation, but I guess we'll kind of see what they bring forth on Saturday.
Well, Greg, your point about Wisconsin being able to wear them down, wear Nebraska's defense down in the past with that typical Wisconsin run game, comes at absolute perfect time as we're recording this 1:30 p.m. on Thursday. Looked at my phone, get a notification that Ndamukong Suh has reached an agreement, a 1-year deal with the Eagles today. And if Nebraska had Ndamukong Suh, I would feel a lot better about their chances, or a guy like him, their chances to to stop Braylon Allen coming into this game. I mean, 6'2", 235-pounder. I mean, he's a monster of he has a monstrous physical build for a running back. And I don't know, it's going to be tough to stop him, and especially after this 4th straight game where they're just facing this gauntlet of Big Ten running backs that we keep talking about every week. We've said it every week in the last 3 games. I mean, Chase Brown, Mohammed Ibrahim, and Blake Corum, now Braylon Allen. So interesting to see how the Huskers defense stands up against him on Saturday. And with that, Steve, we're gonna go around for everyone's bold prediction. Steve, I feel like you're gonna have a doozy for us, but I purposely didn't know what you're gonna say, so I'm interested to see what you're bringing to the table this week.
Yeah, so I'm sticking on the defensive side of the ball here for Nebraska, and my bold prediction is Colton Feast is going to have a career high in tackles for loss against Wisconsin. Now that seems crazy, and I agree it's crazy. I'm just trying to be bold here, but I understand at the beginning of the year when people heard Colton Feast's name thrown around as a guy that was gonna have a lot of starters amount of snaps, because look, he came here as a walk-on. He's from small town Nebraska, UTAN, Nebraska. I covered him in high school as a UTAN chieftain. I never thought in a million years that Colton Feast was going to be playing meaningful snaps when I watched him in high school, but here he is, and he's doing it. And honestly, when I go back and watch the tape, watch the film of this Nebraska defensive line, Colton Feast is the guy that stands out to me as the one that's doing the best out there. And it's really cool in my opinion. He's second on the team in tackles for loss with 6. He had 2 as a career high last week against Michigan. He's just playing well, and it doesn't look like it because he's like 6'2", 275 pounds. That's what he's listed at. He's probably not at 275 pounds. But I don't know. I just think he's the best interior defensive lineman that Nebraska has right now, which is, saying something when you have like Ty Robinson and Stephon Wynn and Devin Drew there. But I think Colton Feast is really doing well. He's really good technique wise. And when I watch Wisconsin's offensive line, it's not your usual big, tough Wisconsin offensive line that's just going to grind you for 4 quarters. It's not as good as it has been in recent years. But when I watched their game against Iowa last year, Iowa's defensive line, which is a lot better than Nebraska's offensive line, let's get that out there first. But some of Iowa's smaller defensive linemen were giving Wisconsin's offensive linemen fits. And Deontay Craig is a Hawkeye lineman. He's about 6'3", 266 pounds. Again, smaller, quicker, maybe really good technique wise, but just doesn't have the strength. He was giving Wisconsin some fits up front. And I think Colton Feast has given some opposing offensive line fits. And I don't know. I just think, he's gonna get his career high in tackles for loss. So right now that number to beat is 2, which he got last week. So Colton Feast, bold prediction, career high 2.5, I guess is what he'll need to get.
Man, it's funny that you say this, because first of all, this plays well with where I'm going here. It's not exactly the same, so don't worry. But I agree with you, Steve, which means that Wisconsin's offensive line is going to come out just like fully dominate because we've now cursed it. But I do think that their offensive line is not as good as in the past. To that point, I also think that Nebraska's defensive line / front 7 has been playing a little bit better than I think people realize. And it kind of surprised me just in kind of looking at some of the numbers that Nebraska has had like more than one sack in every Big Ten game this year, except for Purdue. Purdue was the only game in the Big Ten that they did not register a sack in. They even had two last week, and giving up 34 points to Michigan after that late field goal by Jim Harbaugh. Shout out to him and always doing that. And so because of that, I think Nebraska continues that, and I'll go with another season high on defense. I think Nebraska hits a season high in sacks. The season high is 3. I'm going to go 2 over that, actually, and say that Nebraska actually gets 5 sacks this weekend against the Graham Mertz in Wisconsin's passing attack. I don't know how much that'll help in the end, and we'll see when we get to the final score predictions a little bit later. But I do think the pass rush will be able to get home, and going back to kind of some of those guys that it could be their last games at Memorial Stadium. Caleb Tanner, I think it will be his last game. Garrett Nelson, there's a lot there, and we could probably do an entire video on a will he or will he not come back thing and why he would or wouldn't. Could be his last game as well. I think those guys will be fired up to play. I'm going to put Nebraska down for 5 sacks in the game.
Dang, Greg, going bold with 5 sacks, man. Usually, I would put the sack at total for the other team at that point, but this time I'm sticking with defense for Nebraska. Miles Farmer is back after serving that 1-week suspension after getting arrested for a DUI after the Minnesota game, and of course. That was right after he had a career high 14 tackles against the Gophers. So I think with being suspended for a week, don't underestimate the motivation factor. He's going to want to prove that that situation is not going to throw him off and that he's going to move past it and he's going to continue his strong play. And I think he's going to do that. Nebraska's going to have to load up the box a lot against the Wisconsin running game. So I think that's going to give him a lot of opportunities to get tackles. So that's why I'm going with a career high, at least a career high, 15 total tackles for Farmer. Throw an interception for him too, because Mertz is gonna Mertz with how he's thrown the ball so far this season. So I think he grabs 15 tackles along with the interception for Miles Farmer. Big day coming from the sophomore safety.
Yeah, throw an interception. Why not? I mean, you get an interception, everybody gets an interception. It feels like, I mean, we're going around the room here and around the Zoom. And I thought my bold prediction, which I'm going to get to here in a second, was going to be a little bolder, but getting a sense from you guys that might be more of a more positive lean toward Nebraska's chances in this one. And this part's not my bold prediction, but I think we're talking about the Wisconsin running game so much and Nebraska's ability potentially to defend it. Like I mentioned earlier, 6'2", 235 for Braylon Allen. I just, after this gauntlet that like I was talking about, I think that Braylon Allen might be the one that gives Nebraska the most fits just because of that physical presence. We've seen Nebraska's defense get worn down and not be able to tackle late in games effectively when Chase Brown or Mohamed Ibrahim or Blake Corum is just continually putting that pressure on him. But like you said, Greg, the front seven has sort of stood up better than people realize. And I think probably better than numbers suggest. I mean, Chase Brown was held in check in that first half, but finished with 149 yards. Ibrahim was, I think, 18 yards in the first half and then finished with 128. Blake Corum finished with 162. And each week we keep saying it, man, that look up in the fourth quarter, like, oh man, he has that many rushing yards. Like, it seems like, I mean, Corum ran for like 12 yards was his long. Brown had a 20-yard run. Ibrahim, I think, had like 11, something like that. So they're able to limit the explosive plays, but it's just been a wear and tear. And I'm curious, it's just a point that Braylon Allen, his season highs are in single game highs are 165 rushing yards against Ohio State, 148. Let me get this right. 148 against Illinois State, my Redbirds, go Birds, and 135 against Northwestern. And Nebraska's defense is averaging, they've given up 146.3 yards rushing per game over the last 3. Allen's averaging 103, round about 103 yards rushing per game, which would be a lot higher if not for 2 yards on 8 carries against Illinois. several weeks ago, but I think it's on the table that he's going to get his single game high in this game, just because what we've seen over the last 3 weeks of just, you look up in the fourth quarter and boom, wow, that I didn't realize that the total was that high. So just 1 point to make before getting to this bold prediction, because with all of that said, with the fact that I think Braylon Allen could have a big day, I'm picking Nebraska to win. That is my bold prediction. 10.5 point underdogs. They've lost 4 straight, but when there's a Casey Thompson, there's a way. When there's a Will, there's a way. I mean, just we've seen what this offense with the potential can, what it can potentially be with him there. We've seen what that connection between him and Trey Palmer, what it looks like. And Trey Palmer's really struggled over the last 2 games without him, 2.5. And in that game against Illinois, even when Casey Thompson was in there. But I think everything's telling me to not predict another Nebraska win this season. So you know what? Second to last bold prediction episode of the regular season. I'm picking Nebraska. Why not? You know, it feels like on the outside, maybe they don't have anything to play for, lost season, but Greg's mentioned this before. There's still a lot of pride in that room, and you're playing almost. Mickey Joseph has said that you're playing almost for as a tryout for whoever the next coach is going to be, that every snap is going to be on film. They're going to be evaluated. So still plenty of left to play for everybody on this team and the guys who are going to be suiting up at Memorial Stadium for the last time.
Yeah, pretty bold there, Zach. I see where you're coming from with Casey Thompson. I definitely think the offense should be better. But you know, even with Casey Thompson in some of these most recent games that he didn't play in, I was still going to go with the opponent, I guess. I need to see Nebraska beat Wisconsin before I pick them to beat them. Just 0-8 the last 8 matchups against the Badgers. Look, they bring a style of football that I think a lot of people around here want and wish Nebraska would play themselves. So I'll just go with another Wisconsin win. Wisconsin 26, Nebraska 17.
Man, Zach is trying to pull me over to the other side there, because we did not know that you were going that bold. So
we like dramaticism and unscriptedness.
It's been a while since somebody said something on here where I was like, whoa. But all that being said, I can't do it. I can't go there. As I alluded to before, the thing that I could see Nebraska hanging in there early and holding Braylon Allen in check early in the game. The problem has been not so much that the defense has just been so bad, it's that they get no help from the other side. Therefore, you wear down. And the key point is, you know, Zach mentioned this about Illinois' running back Chase Brown getting held down in the first half. Well, because Nebraska didn't put up enough points, it didn't force Illinois to go away from him so they could just keep running it. The same thing happened in the Wisconsin game. Obviously, it happened in Michigan. I think that happens again. And I think Wisconsin just wears Nebraska down. I think it'll be a closer than the score indicates, 28-10 victory for Wisconsin.
Yeah, I think it's all depending on the offensive performance. I think Casey Thompson's going to help a lot. They're going to score a couple of touchdowns, but with the way Mark Whipple runs the offense and throwing the ball, a couple drop passes, and all of a sudden you give your defense literally no time to get some rest to go against that rushing offense of Wisconsin. So I just don't see Nebraska playing consistent enough. I think Wisconsin is going to pull a couple of mistakes. Graham Mertz throwing an interception, maybe a fumble, but I just don't think Nebraska is consistently good enough on the offensive side of things to keep themselves in it. I'm going with the over though. I have Wisconsin winning it 27-14. A couple of touchdowns, I think, is a good line for me. So 27-14, Badgers win it.
Well, I feel fantastic right now, fellas, because the last time I picked Nebraska and you guys all picked the other team was Nebraska when they beat Indiana. So if all you guys are going against me with a Nebraska win, I feel pretty damn good about my chances based on that just one game. So sticking with it. I didn't say the final score earlier, but I'm going with the Chris Berman score, 23-19 Nebraska, because again, why not just pick why not pick a wacky score? I feel like we might have gotten to that point of the season of just, it's been coach search. I mean, rumors, and conflicting reports over and over, and we're getting toward the end of it. We're getting to the end of the coach search, near the finish line there. We're near the finish line of this season that has gone off the rails, just like this bold predictions video goes off the rails sometimes. So we'll see what happens, but I'm feeling lucky. I'm feeling like it's week whatever that was when Nebraska and Indiana played. I mean, I always get confused because of week 0. I never truly know. Was it week 5? Was it week 6? Like it confuses me sometimes, but we'll see what happens. 11 a.m. kickoff on ESPN Saturday at Memorial Stadium. We'll see what the crowd is like on Nebraska's Senior Day. We will have coverage at nebraska.rivals.com and on this YouTube channel, the Inside Nebraska YouTube channel. For Steve Marek, for Greg Smith and Jeff Ekstrom, I'm Zach Carpenter, and we will catch you guys again the next time.